Cyn. I think we're live. Hey, everybody, welcome to another episode of Terry White live streaming during quarantine. So, with that said, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Terry White, worldwide designer, photography evangelist for Adobe, and it's my pleasure to be joined remotely. So, see, we're social distancing. She's way over there in California, like 6 inches away, but in California. And we're going to be doing. We're going to introduce Cyn. We're going to talk about what she does. But for those of you, like I said, who are new, thanks for watching. We're streaming this live on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Behance, everywhere we can. So feel free to try and monitor the chat. I can probably do a little bit better job than usual because Cyn will be doing her own thing and her own demo, so I don't have to watch both at the same time. I'll pop this chat out so I can put that in another window over here, and then
Sure.
get started. Okay. Hello.
Hi.
So I see some folks all over the place. Colleen's here from South Africa.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, Yank. And Victoria, I saw you. You can't hear me. Why can't you hear me? You might not be able to hear me. Can everyone hear me? I can hear
you guys hear me?
I think we can hear you. Let's try it one more time. How about now? Should be able
Hello.
All right. Should be able to hear both of us.
Yeah.
So with that said, and I'll try and speak up because I think my mic might be turned down a little bit louder. Hers is louder than mine, which is great because she's the one you need to listen to anyway. So Cyn, tell us about you. Tell us who you are, how you came to be here, how you came to be on this stream, so forth and so on.
Sure. Thank you, Terry. Thank you for having me. Actually, I'm really excited today because I get to join you guys, join everyone from the comfort of my home, which is a new, a first for me, and I guess for a lot of us. So I'm a graphic designer and street photographer based in Miami, Florida. And I'm also an Adobe Creative Resident, and that has been a whirlwind, as you know. Yeah.
I do know. So what's a creative resident?
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
Okay, so so an Adobe Creative Resident is a program that Adobe maintains for a period of a year. And as an artist, I think we all can relate to the fact that we often feel like we don't have the right resources or neither monetary or educational resources for us to move forward with a project that we're very passionate about. And that's where the Adobe Creative Residency comes in. We all applied. Currently, there's about 9 of us who applied. In the midst of like about 1,500 applicants, and we got very lucky to be some of the selects, and we're all working on different projects. So if you have an idea or a discipline in design, videography, photography, I would say definitely apply. This year is already closed. However, I did get informed that there are going to be some rare and very interesting opportunities because we're all adjusting to our current situation at the moment, which actually is going to benefit a lot of artists out there. So thanks, Adobe, for putting that together. And I'm excited to tell you guys more in the near future.
All right, sounds good. So how long have you been in the residency program? So like how long have you been a part of this?
So actually, it has already been an entire year, which you would think is a very long time, but it is. At times it is, and at times it isn't. It's been a roller coaster ride of just so much education, resources, inspiration left and right. Yeah, we made it to the year.
So, and do you get to stay like after a year, or is it only one term per resident?
Well, there is an alumni program. So the relationships that you build throughout the year, you're able to maintain them and cultivate them. which can, turn into future projects. And we will always be part of the Adobe family, which is, it's just such a big deal because obviously a lot of us who are part of different disciplines tend to use the programs on a daily basis. So being close to the people who create the programs, who are finding a way to influence the way they create the programs, is just such an opportunity. So I'm really excited about that too.
That's awesome. So you applied for the residency, you got picked, and apparently each resident has their own discipline as well. So I have you on as my photography resident, but name some of the other residents, or not necessarily their names, but their disciplines. Like, what else do we have in the residency program?
Yeah, so we have UI UX, videography, illustration also. And yeah, I'm a graphic designer and photography focused. So I tend to use my photography and graphic design as a medium of storytelling. So I like to merge the two whenever possible. And today, more than ever, I think creating a digital presence and knowing the two can be very helpful.
Got you. Okay. So, and how long have you been a photographer? Like, how long have you been doing this?
Actually, I'll love to share some of my work with
All right, let's do that.
everyone.
Let me know when you're ready.
Sure. We'll share the screen.
All right.
All right. So one of the projects, the name of my project is called Visual Language, and it really stems from feeling very inspired in this space of transition. So I have a degree in graphic design, but I decided to venture into street photography because I was very intrigued in the in cultivating just stories told in the streets, and also navigating my own personal experience as a Latin American and being just surrounded by so many different diverse cultures. And so visual language, I felt like, was the best way to define. I'm not just a street photographer, I'm not just a graphic designer, but I'm a visual storyteller. And I found different ways to do that. So I wanted to create an educational space for everyone else to be able to use those techniques and those mediums I've used in the past to be able to tell stories. So I created this space on my website where you should be able to find different techniques, and also things that are both inspirational on a mindset level and also on a practice level, which means for me, it means, oftentimes we're always trying to find the technical way of trying to create something, but not everything lies on that. There has to be a click, right? Where as artists, we get excited to express ourselves. We have to feel inspired. So here you can also find podcasts. You can find different ways that I've found to be able to grow my own personal career while maintaining that integrity of telling somebody's story, or a story of a culture, in this case particularly.
So cool. All right. And where can people find that website? What is it?
So the website is called cynlagos.com, and within the website you will find the zine, which is my digital magazine, and in here is visual language. And you can also review some of the photos that I've taken in the past, which I hope can inspire you to go out there and take your own photography once this whole thing is over, of course. I think now more than ever, I found a really good time to just go through my archives and feel inspired by my own photography, especially now that we are kept from having these experiences. I'm just very grateful that I've had the chance to explore these places and people, and yeah, so.
Very cool. And that's cynlagos.com, correct? Mm-hmm. I'm putting that in the chat.
Cynlagos.com, yeah. I'm really lucky. My name appears to be available everywhere. So Cyn Lagos for my Instagram also. which I also like to share my educational techniques there, as well as any inspirational spaces. It's really a journal for me. I like to treat it as such. So you can find a lot of cool
Very
stuff there
cool.
too. Hmm.
Awesome. All right. So, and I think
Yeah.
today you're going to give us a little bit of a demonstration of one of the things you've been working on.
Yeah, so actually, I'll like to start this by explaining. So throughout the creative residency, not only do we focus on the project that we originally pitched, but there is room for growth. I think one of the first things that was explained to us is if you feel exactly what we want out of you, we want you to grow, no matter how, but we want you to change and grow as an individual, as an artist, as an entrepreneur. So I have had the opportunity to work with my mentor, Sebastian Perez, Digital Acid, for anybody who's intrigued in 360 and emerging technology. I've been able to explore new mediums of storytelling that aren't just focused on still photography or design digital, you know, digital mediums that are the ones that I've been used to all this time. So I've been exploring 360 photography and videography. So this kind of stems from my findings and the learning curve that I had to go through myself to be able to understand how I can express myself through this medium, try to comprehend the world more than just 180, but rather like the entire space. And I'm still in that journey, but I would love to share with everyone today how I've been able to play around with creating self portraits and involving a bit of graphic design in it to create a very intriguing and interesting portrait style that I think is going to be very exciting for the near future.
Very cool. And Zane says visual language is amazing. So you already have some fans and people ask for your website. So I made sure I tried to paste it in all the chats. That's awesome. Really growing fast, says Steve on Behance, and just so people are jazzed about what you're doing. This is great.
Wonderful. And I'd like to also say that if anybody has any questions about the Adobe Creative Residency or about visual language in general, I'm always replying to my direct messages on Instagram and on my website as well. So I love to create a
And
community of designers.
and your Instagram is Cyn Lagos, right? So same as your website. So Cyn
Yeah,
Lagos is
yeah,
your Instagram, your Twitter, your website. You're so lucky you got the one name that covers everything.
yeah, yeah, definitely. So I'm going to share with everyone my template. I think Terry, you have that available
Yep,
for.
I have that. Let me grab that link and I'll post that in there in the chats as well. If I can figure out which
So
mouse I want. I want this one.
so this
Okay.
template, just to preface, is it enables the image to be read as a 360 image. So it's very important to be able to use that and look all of that in Photoshop and not venture too out there with 3D programs. So for me, that was a sense of comfort because I've used Photoshop from the very beginning. So let me just swap over. Can everyone see my Photoshop interface?
Yep, we can see it.
Perfect. All right. So once you are able to download this Photoshop file, you're going to find that it has a guide at the very top. In fact, they might end up looking like this. So this, what it does is it helps explain how your image will be worked later. And it's important to know that because there are areas down here right in the center horizontally that none of our um, text or graphics are going to get warped, but anywhere above and below, it's definitely going to warp that image once it gets enabled as a 360 image by any platform. Like Facebook at the moment has the ability to experience 360 images, which is only going to come a lot faster in the near future for Instagram and everywhere else. So
Yeah, I
let me
love
just
posting
show you.
360s to Facebook.
Yeah, yeah, and actually, this image, I took with a 360 camera, the GoPro Max, which I actually have right here, and you don't really have to have this. This is exactly what it's meant to do, a 360 image, but um, should you not have this, and you still want to play with this at home, especially right now, don't go out and buy something very expensive before you try this idea. I think it can still work with a panoramic photo that you take from your phone. So that could be a very cool experiment to play around with photos that you already have in your phone that are panoramics and try to experience them in a 360 space. So I'm gonna show you a few examples of what I've done with other photos. And let me see, let's jump right here.
Cool.
So for example, this is a flat image that I expanded into a 360 space, right? And I'll just let me see for a moment. Um, so this is I love there's a word in Spanish. Whenever someone goes into a photo and a graphic or draw on it, it's called intervenir, which to me is so specifically correct, which is almost like an intervention. You're entering the space that is organic because it's a photo, right? And you're introducing some elements that are digital. And that just creates a very imaginative space. And it's really up to you to just reimagine what you can do. But I'll give you a few of my favorite tools and like examples of how I like to start playing around. And then here's another one. One of the
And
um,
Zane
yeah,
just became your biggest fan. He's like, "Can you share more of your Photoshop files?"
thanks, Dave. Awesome. Yeah, actually, I definitely want to I want to share a lot more photos now. I've been going, like I said, going through my archives, and it's been very inspirational. I think a lot of us tend to take a lot of photos, and it's really hard to hit that button and share with everyone. I get it. It's like an experience of its own that goes into the World Wide Web and it's out there forever. But it's actually a beautiful thing because then you get to garner a community like of designers and photographers or any discipline you're in. So yeah, I'll definitely share more. On that note, like this is specific portraits. I wanted to sort of create a portrait that explained who I was. So I included the graphic designer at the top and try to play around. And when you take a photo, also you have to think, what is the activity that's going on? In this one, I'm actually editing, whereas in the other one, I was actually exploring. I was taking a day where I was exploring the streets and trying to see where I could find. Uh, you can't see my bike, but it's all the way up back there.
Yep,
So let's start.
barely
Let's
see it.
start
So,
playing.
not you got a question. Nadia is asking, "Do I need it? Do I need an account to go to your website, or can anyone go to your website without signing in?"
No, you don't need an account. It's a public site, and the visual language section is actually open source. And I'm going to continue to develop that. So whatever tools, I'm actually working on creating filters, uh, filter teasers. So I'll make a few available to everyone and a few for purchase. Um, I will also be discussing some monetary outlets that I'm currently considering myself, and I know that a lot of you are also thinking about that can help you out. And all of that's going to be inside the visual language section of my website. So let's
Gotcha.
jump
Okay.
into yeah, yeah. So
Cool.
let's jump into this. So right away, I think one of the main pet peeves that I have with any image is I tend to see things that I don't want included in the image. So let's turn off the guide at the top, and you can see already that there's some warping at the very bottom. That's because I took a 360 photo, but if it's a panoramic photo, nonetheless, it's the same application. I want to stamp out anything that I don't really like. At the very bottom here, you can see the tripod legs, and I really don't like that. So I like to create a new layer for that. I try to work non-destructive, so that means I'm not going to do any editing directly on the photo. I'm going to always separate the images. So I'm going to group this, and I'm going to call this retouching, right? And I love colors, so I always color my files. It just helps me navigate through this a lot faster. Okay, so what's important in this case is that when you select the stamp tool, which is right here, or you can also hit S. I love hotkeys. Sometimes I forget where the tools are because I'm always using the hotkeys. Highly recommend it.
And for me,
So
I'm always losing a tool because I've customized my tool panel and I can't find where I placed it anymore. So keyboard shortcuts definitely come in handy.
Yeah, and if you need to customize your toolbar, there's always these three buttons at the very bottom, and it says Edit Toolbar, and you can toggle around the tools that you use most. Of course, I personally like to kind of keep them almost at the same order because I like to jump into any computer and right away know where everything is. But it's really your workspace, so make it as you like. Okay, so now that I have the stamp tool, I'm gonna hit Alt or Option, and so that's gonna help select an area that I can use to stamp out this particular asphalt here so that it doesn't show the tripod. And with any of the edits that I'm doing, the more time and delicateness that you have to be able to edit it perfectly, it's always going to be nicer. It's almost like a Zen space where you get to just lose yourself in the editing process. At least for me, I always find it very comforting, and especially right now, very relaxing. So we have less anxiety.
Less anxiety is more. Is better.
Yeah. Yeah. I think for me it's been a lot about diving into my artistic practice. It's less work for me. It's more like, what is it that I want to move forward with? What is it that I've been doing so far? Self-reflecting as an artist has been a common routine of mine lately. So right away, I'm able to, you can always press the brackets, the open brackets, to expand your brush. And I'll give you a lot of shortcuts because that's gonna always make you a lot faster as a designer, especially when someone's demanding a deadline or for just your sake,
Yep.
right? It just feels good. This is a little, and that's that. So now I know that if I can turn this off, I can have all of that back should I need it. In this case, I wouldn't, but it's just non-destructive, which is always going to be helpful. Okay, so I retouched that file. So what I'm going to do is hit Shift Command E Shift Option Command E. That makes a brand new copy of exactly those edits, but you still have the divided layers at the very bottom should you need to go back. The reason why we're doing that is because I'm going to edit this color to sort of my liking, more of my style. So I love this blue. Miami has some beautiful skies and it's always sunny. So it always nurtures a different kind of color palette. And it always depends. I love creating filters because if I'm in New York, the colors are completely different. The light conditions completely different. So it's always fun to play with what criteria the photo carries. So I'm gonna go to image, adjustment, selective color, and I love that blue at the top, and I'm gonna go into cyan and try to isolate that color and see how much I can pull from it. So I actually want it to be a little bit closer to teal. I think it lends for more of a cinematic look. If you are a movie buff or you have become over the quarantine a movie buff, I highly recommend to watch the classics, and you can see that their color editing style always relies on these beautiful teal blues and orange reds. So let's do that. I kind of like how that looks. Okay, and then whenever necessary, we can also pull the reds. And what I like about this is that it's being very what's selecting and isolating. So it's not going to tamper with the rest of the image. It's not an entire coating of a filter. It's very smart. So Adobe Sensei is able to detect which colors are in your image that you want to modify. I'm going to go into the cyan once more and bring that up. I like that. It's subtle, but I already like the way it feels. I'm gonna also, there I went again with the shortcuts. Command M brings up the curves, the curve channel. And I love the curve channel because again, it's all about subtleties. And I can see that I've lost a bit of the contrast. There's also a few highlights that are kind of blowing out a little bit. So I like to bring that down by clicking at the very top. And that already brings me a little bit closer to more of a the sun was definitely directly facing me, so that a lot of that is pre-production, but you can see there it already improves it. Okay, so now we
Very
have,
cool. All right, and
yeah,
I have a tip. This is one because it's
sure.
one based off what you just mentioned a few minutes ago. Because I run into this. I used to run into this all the time. So you gave the bracket keyboard shortcut for making your brush bigger and smaller. That's
Yeah.
great, except I ran it, especially when I was doing this with international audiences. Not every keyboard has bracket keys. So I was like,
Wow.
oh, sorry, I didn't know. So on the US
Yeah, that's
keyboard, yes,
important.
bracket keys next to the letter P. But if you want another shortcut for just making your brush bigger or smaller, just hold down your Control and Alt key, and you can drag the brush size bigger and smaller just by holding down those two keys. So Control Option on Mac, Control Alt on Windows, and that will let you adjust your brush size if you don't have bracket keys on your keyboard.
That's very important. Yeah, because our audience is international and just like always going to be different for everybody. So definitely take that into account. Okay. All right, so I think I am ready to play around with some graphics. And yeah, Terry, I've watched a lot of your live streams, and one of the cool things that I really enjoy is using my library panel where everything is connected. So a lot of times I create different graphics and I use them for one particular project, but when it comes to brand development, and I've learned this during my branding years as a graphic designer, it's really important to be consistent. It's really important to maintain that sense of personality as you go along within from project to project, really. So in my library section, I have some really cool uh, shapes that I've used throughout my projects. And if you follow me on Instagram, you see that I'm always creating these shapes. I just love the imaginative, sort of playful nature of it. So I'm going to be pulling some of those. But before I do that, I'm going to create a folder because we want to maintain ourselves organized. So I'm going to call this graphics. And again, change the color, in this case, green. And in here, I'm going to be pulling in a few of these shapes. So you can see this is actually a vector shape that I'm pulling in from Illustrator. Should you not know how to work with Illustrator, you can always play around with the pen tool and create different shapes. And actually, this might be a great practice for you to learn how to do Bezier curves and play around with like how to just be faster with it. I think that's always one of my missions, to just learn how to be a lot faster with my workflow. Okay, so back to the shape. We're going to call this shape 1 so we know what it is and put it inside the folder. All right. So let's go back to our guide here. So we have to remember that wherever the guide explains that this is going to get warped, we have to make sure that, if we put it there, it's intentionally going to get warped. Maybe it's the effect we're after. But otherwise, I would say to keep it easier, like maintain some of these graphics around the middle area, right? That it's kind of the happy place. And so we're going to place this one maybe here. I'm sort of experimenting as I go too, so let's enjoy the process.
All right, guys, and I know there were some people asking and saying things about the audio. I turned hers down a little bit more, turned mine up a little bit more, so hopefully it's a little bit more balanced. Let me adjust mine just a little bit higher, and hopefully we should now fairly sound the same, although her voice sounds better. But go on, continue, Cyn.
Oh, okay. So I brought down the opacity for this so that I can be able to select. One of the things that I like to practice a lot is the idea of Z space. So what is in the foreground, what is in the midground, what is in the background. So when it comes to these graphics, I think including them within the objects or myself in the photography is going to make it feel more of like part of like a unit, part of the entire image. So in order to do that, I'm going to select the pen tool to be able to isolate the parts that I don't want the image to show up in. I mean, the graphic to show up in. So I'm going to just quickly do a selection. And you can see I love the pen tool. It's always accurate and so helpful. So of course there is things like magic wand and you can play around with that. But like I said, if you really are enjoying the process, you can take your time with something like this and you'll find that it will really pay off.
The pen tool is your friend.
The pen tool is your friend. It really comes in handy in so many parts of my my process. It tends to be very helpful for isolating, and I'm actually going to be working on masks next. And those of you who are not familiar with masks, I think the rule of thumb here is just think about it as black and white. So the white reveals, the black hides. Much like if you're in the darkness in a dark room, you can't see anything. So I like, again, using that because instead of erasing, I get a chance to just remove without losing my information. And masking is also a really, really important tool to learn. Went too fast there.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
So which, I don't know if you mentioned it, but which 360 camera did you use to photograph these?
Yeah. So I've been using the GoPro Max, and the GoPro Max also has the ability to shoot like your original GoPro, that the earlier GoPros. But when you enable the 360, you really get this opportunity to grab onto the entire scene. So you're able to get two cameras in this device, which allow you to get 180 on one side and 180 on the other side. There's also this neat feature, which is how I took this photo, which allows you to take this 360 photo as opposed to a video. And yeah, it takes thinking about it. Honestly, the best way I think about it when I'm setting up a portrait shot for a 360 image is I think about it in a circle. If I was standing somewhere in a circle, would that composition there's a wall. So then that you're losing an entire set of 360. Maybe sometimes that looks really cool. It all depends if that's like a feature. Um, so like yeah, so that's kind of how I think about it as a circle. Okay, so now we have the path here. This is an old path. We can erase that. So okay, we have the our path panel, and you want to double click that so we don't lose it and name it. I'm going to name it self. Okay, so now that that's a name, directly select, right click, and put make selection. And in this case, we want a radius of 0. Okay, so again, with the masks, you can always find them down here at the very bottom of your layer panel. And when you hit the mask, you'll see, let's increase the opacity of this. You'll see what happens. So if I just hit the mask like that, it's going to decide that whatever's inside the selection is going to be revealed and outside is going to be hidden. But if I hit Alt or Option and click it, it will do the opposite. So you can see which parts are selected and which parts are revealed are always reflected by the white and the black. There you go. We have that one ready. I actually want to change the color of this one. So I'm going to double click it, do a color overlay, and pick a more fiery orange. Okay, okay. So for each element, I thought it looked a little bit strange if I just left it like that. So I'm going to add a layer that I'm going to name shadow so that we can create some dimension here. And of course, you can also play around with bringing in 3D elements. It's really up to you. Like the options are endless. But if you want to experiment with something that's more 2D in a 3D space, I think that's also really neat. So I'm gonna play around with the shadow here, and with this path selected, we're gonna hit inverse. Sorry, Command I. Oops, or not. I don't remember that. Okay, so let's just select this. So you can hit Command and just select the mask, and that already does it. There's always around 5 different ways of doing one thing. So we're gonna use, we're gonna want to select black here so that we have opportunity to create a shadow. And I'm just gonna create a subtle shadow here, and then select soft light, or you can select overlay. It depends on the scenario you're in. And someone's at my door. Okay, so
The joys of working from home.
That we're yeah, multitasking. I really enjoy it, frankly. Okay, so now that I'm done with that, I'm just gonna call this 1. And now I've created that really cool. Actually, I really would like to move it around. And one way to move around the graphic is to unlink it from the mask. And you can just like, you're able to just move that particular graphic around. So like if you don't really like the placement, it's already able to know that that selection is blacked out, so it's not available. So I can always rotate it, do anything I want, and I like that because it's far more playful and it allows me to just experiment. So, kind of like it there.
And Mark says, nice work.
Thanks. Thanks, Mark. I'm excited to see everyone's approach at this. If you try it, definitely share it with me at Visual Language Practice. I am definitely talking to Mark at the moment since he likes it. Okay, so let's try another graphic.
Do you ever use
Okay,
the what do you call it? The 360 viewer in Photoshop? Like, do you ever preview it that way, or do you just post it?
I tend to post it. I was actually looking into that. I thought it was very interesting. I haven't dived too deep into that just yet. Do
Okay.
you recommend it?
Yeah, there's a because they created a new workspace just for this to like, if nothing else, but to look at it. Under
Mm-hmm.
the 3D menu, spherical panorama, and you can import your job or your document in there, and you can move it around in the 3D space, like in the 360 space, so you can see what it actually looks like.
Interesting.
Not saying
I
try it now, but
wonder,
I'm
yeah,
it's
I'll
just,
definitely,
yeah, when you get a chance, check it out.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, everything ends up, I learn one tool every single day, and it's always, it throws me into a whole nother space. So I'll look into
As
that for sure.
matter of fact, let me try. I'm going to try it with your template while you're doing that.
Yeah.
Let's
So
see
again,
what
I'm
it
doing the
looks like.
same process here of making sure that I hit Alt when I'm selecting the mask so that I'm able to reveal the selection and vice versa. So play around with that. We'll create the shadow. Oh, one good way to do this instead of the way I did it earlier, I just remembered, is you can just hold Option and drag over that same selection you had at the bottom at the top, and there you go. It's already in there. So hit
Very
soft
cool.
light. It's really about yeah, subtleties. And with this, you can really like continue for a while and just create a bunch. I'm gonna do one more here. Play with this. I feel like this golden one is cool. I love creating these muted color palettes. It's one of my favorite parts about uh, graphic design. There's endless color palettes, and they really influence maybe the color editing of a photo because you can play around with that too. Let's see, drag the silhouette, and I think in here I forgot to include this little gap. So when that happens, you can always select the self selection that you had made earlier, and you can continue to draw on top of it. Just got to make sure. It's kind of hard to see here, but you could see it when it's selected. Got to make sure it's selected, and then you grab the pen tool again, and let's do this inner selection here. So if you forget to select another part, don't do a different layer because it's just probably unnecessary. Um, unless you really must. I can see reasons why that could be helpful too. Okay. So, whoa.
Whoa.
Select inverse. All right, so we're gonna brush out that section. Low 100. Remember that part right there that shows like whenever you want to bring back something, you have to select the white on your brush so that it reveals that. And whenever you want to hide something, you use the black on your brush. So you just toggle that, and you can press X to toggle back and forth.
Cool. And Patrick Wong is saying, hello from Hong Kong. And Rufus just joined us. Hey, Rufus.
Wow.
It's pretty
Hong
late
Kong.
where you are.
Yeah, that's exciting. So I'm going to create some shadows. Always create shadows. I think it's nice to be able to create some dimension in an otherwise 2D space. Soft light. Boom. And always transferring over that mask has basically sped up my process. I'm going to unlink the shadow because I want to move it around a little bit behind me. And boom. It is moved, and then I think it looks a lot better. Okay, so on the final step, I'm going to just add text. I think it'd be really neat to include some text in here to just guide. So if someone was to look around, they would be able to read into sort of what you're about. Maybe you're a graphic designer, maybe you're a photographer or an illustrator. It's always fun to play with type. So I'm gonna jump in here, create a folder called type.
And now I see where your template comes in.
Yeah, it definitely helps to learn to navigate where everything's going to be stable and not warped. Okay, so then now, one thing we could do is you can always create a direct straight text, kind of like the one you see reflected here. You can see the letters are straight, or you can follow this path to be able to write the copy, right? You can follow this entire path. It takes a lot more time, so I don't necessarily recommend it. It's really a trial and error. You can see it reflected.
And Steve Casamum, you win the award for viewing the most streams for today from another country. So your fourth stream today, and it's 8:45 a.m. in New Zealand. I'm impressed. Did I lose you? Cyn, you still there? Uh-oh, folks, we might have lost Cyn. Hang on. She was in mid-application switch. All right, we may have lost our guest. She was wrapping up with the last step. We'll give her another second to pop back in. I'm going to text her on the side. Okay, we might have lost Cyn. Hang on, let me switch to see if we can get her back here. Yeah, we just have her frozen system as she was switching. So if Cyn can pop back in the next few minutes, great. We'd love to have her back. While she's gone, I will show that one tip that I was talking about in terms of using Photoshop to view your 360 in the 3D space. So you can actually rotate it around. So let me switch over to my desktop. There we go. And I've got her template open so you guys can see it. This is the template that she shared with you. But she also shared with me her, like the 360 that she showed you earlier. So this is the one that she customized. And this doesn't have the graphic designer text at the very top, but it's still a nice 360-degree shot. Now, this is unfortunately the way 360s look when they're flat. They look like kind of warped. They look kind of spread out. They're not really showing it in its true 3D form or 360 form. So what I'm going to do is just take this image that's already open. Again, she just gave me this today. And I'm going to go up to my 3D menu and come down to Spherical Panorama, New Panorama from Selected Layers. So you can even select specific layers that you want to view in this space, or import a panorama directly if it's not already open. So since I already have this open, I'm going to say New Panorama from Selected Layers. And when I do that, that will just give me this view where, oh, now the image doesn't look distorted, and I can pan it around. I can look up, I can look down, I can look at it as if we were in the same room that she's in and turn around. Oh, there's a guy over there on the phone. This looks like it might have been an airport or some other travel thing back in those days when we could travel. But there's Cyn sitting on the sofa there with her big laptop. All right, so with that said, I think we're gonna go ahead and call it we're gonna end the stream. I don't think Cyn's back. Let me check one more time. Yeah, she's not back yet. So we're just going to go ahead and end it here. It was great having Cyn on. Go check out her website at cynlagos.com, cynlagos.com. And we'll have her back. Don't worry, we'll have her back for more. But at least you guys got a chance to see like 99% of what she was doing. She was just putting on some finishing touches. And then we're just going to wrap it up anyway. So with that said, cheers, everybody. Thanks for watching. And we'll catch you on the next one. So it was great having Cyn. Cyn, if you're watching, it's great having you on. Sorry we had a technical glitch at the very end where you got dropped. I'm just checking one last time to see if you're trying to come back in. And, oh, you are. You're trying to come back in. Hold on. She's back. You're back. Cyn? Hang on. Oh, there you are. You're back. Hold on. I was just saying goodbye to everybody because we lost you. Let me put you back in. Hold on, folks. Let me get her back on. I can hear you. Hang on. I'm just going to put you back in so they can see you. Your audio is also kind of breaking up a bit. Are you having a internet issue? There you are. You're back. They should be able to see you now.
Wonderful. Hi, everyone.
Sorry about that. Don't know why we dropped you, but you're back now.
It's okay. Yeah.
All right. And I had
we have to troubleshoot.
Right. I had just shown everyone how I took your photo that you sent me, your 360, and I showed it in the 360 viewer in Photoshop. So they got a chance to see that.
Oh, nice.
All right.
Okay. So yeah, I'm gonna play around with that feature for sure.
Okay. Hang on. Let me do one thing real quick. Let me see if I can get you back on with both of us. And let me replace that shot one more time. Hang on, folks. I know you don't see her yet. You will in just a second. And there she is. So yeah, this is what I was showing everybody. Oh, pull you back over. I was just showing them how you sent me that one, and we're looking at it in Photoshop in
beautiful
360 view. So that's how that works.
Oh yes.
So once again,
so that's exactly.
I was going to say, I was just going to show you how I did that. Let's go open.
We're forever students. That's the beautiful part of it.
So yeah, I was just explaining, this is the flat shot you sent me, even though it is a 360, it has that 360 in the metadata. And all I did was go up to 3D, Spherical Panorama, New Panorama from the selected layers, because we already have it open. And then just bring it up, and we do that.
Right. So what I want to say about that is that scope, that feel, is exactly the experience that you're going to be able to get in Facebook. And I think maybe a few of you, or I think a lot more people are becoming more in tune with this experience on Facebook. So this is sort of where that comes from.
Exactly.
Okay, so I'm going to share my screen
All right.
once more.
Let's get you back. And wait, let me put you back in there. Hold on one sec. All right. They're seeing a question mark. And I need to replace that with you. All right, cool. They can see you now.
Awesome. Okay, so so what I was explaining is sometimes you would find the photo to be sort of a guide to include the font. So in this case, for example, I curved onto the C to what I was going to be creating at the end. So we can do that again here, or we can choose to include it more in a flat area. So I'm gonna actually include it in a flat area. And let's increase that. And let me turn off that guide. Right, and my word photog ended up in the wrong folder, so there it is. Photog. Should we write grapher at the other end? Maybe we should. There we go. Let's remove that. Photographer. Let's see, maybe I'll have to make this a little bit smaller. And just copy that same size to the other one. And when it comes to typography, you can also experiment. There's so many cool fonts out there. You can experiment creating more 3D spaces. I like including this because it's just such an interesting element to be able to read in a photo that moves in that way. Okay, so I'm going to create a mask and try to bring back this bike by hitting the B for brush and erasing with black. So X to toggle the black to my brush. And it doesn't have to be a perfect select. I think it's kind of cool that it like fades this way. Sometimes that works out. I really enjoy that look. And then so I'll keep the O at the, let's see, we can do something else here. Maybe this post. So let's add a mask to grapher and remove this. And what I like about being able to toggle is because sometimes I'm like, oh, okay, well, I took a little too much right there, back and forth from white to black to be able to know exactly how much I want to remove or take away. And I think that looks really neat. And then just the last thing that I think it would be really interesting to experiment with is you can always draw on your so I like to create, I thought I lost you there for a second. All right, so I like to create a doodle section. Let's just call it doodle, boom. And as such, we'll make it yellow. And so I'll grab the brush tool. You can, there are so many cool brushes out there. Sometimes I like to just keep it to something like a pencil or and I'm also using the Intuos tablet. If you see that I'm able to move around this way, that's the reason. It does help. It's a lot harder to do it with a mouse or or the mouse, the pad on your laptop, but I would say play around with that because sometimes even those strange, like non-perfect space it like strokes can look really neat. So, and I do this a lot when I'm editing on Instagram. A lot of people think I bring it into a program and then post it on a doodle all over the photo. I like doing that a lot. I think it's fun to play around with any given image. Just adds so let's do that. I'm gonna add my mask again. So cool. I'm gonna repeat that one so it looks a little bit darker. Select them both, Command E, makes them one. I'll do it one more time, Command E, boom. And then now we're gonna erase one more time because I think this could be a little bit shorter. All right. And the brush again. Nice. Okay. So I really like the way this turned out, and this is just experimenting with all of you at the moment, and I think this just experience in itself is it's really fluid. You want to be able to enjoy yourself and just have fun with the graphics and different ways that you can experiment in intervening a photo. So to finish this image, we want to share it with everyone. So we're gonna again use that shortcut that we used earlier, which I tend to forget, but it's Shift Option E. Shift Command E selects everything and puts them into one, but Shift Option Command E actually creates a brand new example of what you've created. So we can put these within a folder and call them working layers, which is great. And now what we can do is share it with everyone on social media platforms. So actually exporting this is very simple. All you have to do is press Save As and save it as a JPEG, which I was very surprised by because you would think it would be a complicated exporting system, but the program is able to understand that there's a 360 metadata within the image, so it keeps that so that Facebook can read it also. So JPEG, correct. Let's see. Okay, as usual, as I would save any other file, and let's go to Facebook.
I think you're going to get a lot of friend requests now.
That's okay. All right, so it's able to share photo or video. You can also drag and drop. So in this case, let's see where I put my file. I put it in 360 ready for web, which is the way I like to call it. So when you drop it in, you can see right here right away that there is a gyroscope icon. This means it's working, and that means that Facebook has recognized the metadata, and it's going to enable your viewers to see it as a 360 image, so that when they move their phone or if they scroll with their mouse or the finger, then it will be able to show the space around it using the gyroscope. So let's remove this and say live stream. Okay. I'm gonna post it. And I'm going to check it out here on my phone. Let's see if I have some other examples here of how I did that. You can see, play it around. That's where I think like the to create, right? And
Very
if
cool.
you were to see it,
Adding the graphics
yeah,
in. Yeah, I see that now.
I'm going to refresh this so I can see the other one. And that, lends to a lot of different opportunities because, a lot of companies are investing in Facebook marketing and they're trying to stand out, right? So it's important that you find ways that they can communicate their brand and to the audience, but instead it's inspiring. So it's really neat to be able to experiment and also create a medium that could become a monetary outlet somewhere in the future. I'm gonna also show it to you on my phone. So let's see, let's jump onto here, stop sharing screen. All right, so I also have it here, which is really neat. If I use my phone, you're able to see the way it moves. Sorry, I can't, everybody nowadays uses their phones as the primary.
It's funny. I've done very little editing of 360s, adding other elements to them as photos, even though I have done it in video.
It's been a really interesting experience to be able to jump from something that I'm so accustomed to seeing in 2D space to experimenting with a 3D space and also implementing a bit of graphic design.
All right, if you got time for just a couple questions, I know there was at least one person that said, "Are we sticking around for questions at the end?" Go ahead. Now's the time before we end it.
Yeah, if you have any questions that involve graphic design, street photography, I really personally have been reconsidering my way to use 360 as a way to bring everyone, my entire audience into streets or how I communicate with people of different cultures. And yeah, it's really exciting for.
Here's Ryan's question. In order to achieve this design, must someone take their photo using a fisheye lens? I missed the start of the stream. My apologies. So basically, he's worrying about,
That's
or not
okay.
worrying, but asking.
See image with I guess I didn't drop it in earlier, but I did do a 360 image that as long as you use the template, it will be able to recognize the metadata in that way. So let's see if I drop this one in. It will still work. I've tried it several times before. I think it's maybe this one.
That.
Oh, that's okay. It hasn't loaded yet. So I
Okay.
will share. Getting used to this toggle back and forth.
Understood.
Okay, so there we go. And so when you're able to, so I have this image here that I actually didn't take in a 360 camera. It's just by the nature of it, it is a large image that can lend itself to feeling panoramic. It also wasn't necessarily panoramic, but I cut it at a 16 by 9 to make that feeling of it being left, right, and center, right? So you can use any of your panoramic photos from your phone. You can crop a photo 16 by 9 and put it into the template, and it will still be able to give you the same effect. Granted that there are some parts that will be warped, which, if you're a purist, you're going to find a bit uncomfortable, but it's really neat to be able to experiment nonetheless and get a sense of what that could be like. So you can see here the vessel. It kind of, this is the vessel in New York. It kind of lends itself to a good view, good viewing experience for 360.
And
When it gets down here, it does get.
that started with a flat photo.
That started with a flat photo that I just cut into 16 by 9,
Wow,
so
very cool.
horizontally.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you can, look at all your photos and see if there's a photo that can work out this way. So no, you don't need to have the equipment, but eventually you would want to experiment with the equipment because they will help those warping scenarios.
All right, and then we have a question from Tremaine. He's actually asking about the one where you were sitting on the couch. The question is, where were you? Or no, not where were you? Where was the camera placed when you took this shot? So uh, when you took this shot, and this is the one that, by the way, once again, I used the Photoshop 3D ability to rotate it in 360 space. But where was the camera when this shot was taken?
Yeah, so the camera, some important things to consider. Like I said earlier, definitely think about your compositions. Especially for me, I was very at a loss at how do I create an interesting composition? This isn't rule of thirds anymore. I had to think about the circumference of my space. So in this moment, I was able to understand that there's a very cool, interesting element in the back and the front and the sides. The camera was actually at my knee distance as far as height. And the other element that you have to think about is how far is the camera from you. So you can also use this trick with a regular camera where, maybe a few of you are familiar with. If you take a photo from below, you will make the individual or the subject feel more important, more magnanimous and interesting. It could sometimes warp it because anything that's closer to the lens would get smaller. So in this case, it was helpful. It was interesting to have the camera at my knee level because it made the whole thing seem a little bit grand. But most often than not, you actually want it to be eye level. It's a whole different set of experience. Yeah,
Looking up and
yeah.
looking around, but still three.
Next to me, it was the camera was sitting next to me, but it was strange because if you really have the shot, you realize that the entire time you're looking to the right, that's the only a circumference.
Yeah, and see, one of the things I know sometimes when I'm trying to take a 360 photo of something, like I'm just trying to capture a room. I'm not like, I don't want to be in it. So a lot of times I'm having to use a remote to fire the 360 once I get out of the scene because there's nowhere to stand
Oh,
in the room that you're not in the
yeah,
shot
yeah,
with a 360.
yeah, yeah.
So you got to use some kind of
I've
wireless remote to do
definitely,
it.
yeah, I've definitely been in those situations. I've set up a timer and I just ran and got behind the tree. So, so if you dig in there, you will find me. But yeah, I know what you mean by that. It's really important. I think recently, before this whole thing went into to effect, I had found myself like, wanting to get establishing shots of locations. I live in a very beautiful city that has gorgeous Art Deco architecture, and I'm really inspired by it. So you'll see some of that 360 footage coming pretty soon.
All right, and so we're gonna wrap things up. I did see one more question. Ryan's asking, and Ryan, this is a pretty good question. You're asking, trying to dive into graphic design and photography. What's the best way to find mentors? And what would you consider the best way to start building a portfolio? I live in New York City. Well, you live in a great place to build a portfolio first and foremost. But in terms
Absolutely.
of finding mentors, Behance.net. It's like the creative space or creative social media place for people to get together. And on these live streams that you're seeing, especially on the ones that are hosted every day at Adobe Live, you're in the chat with other like-minded individuals and other designers and other people
Mhm.
that can help you with the mentorships and mentoring.
Yeah. Yeah, on the note of mentorship, I think that's so important actually. A lot of what I've learned on the 360 space, I attribute to my mentor, Sebastian. And it can be very, very different to create a community. That's very, very important too. I use Behance, Discord to create that community, Instagram. Those are like-minded individuals that are very much in the hustle and then really trying to learn and trying to be involved. But if you need any one-to-one mentorship, I'm actually providing one-to-one mentorship as an outlet for myself to create virtual spaces to help everybody on the educational space, but also just as an entrepreneur and just as an artist. So I'm providing a 30-minute free session. So if you ever want to book a session and talk to me about some of your milestones, I could definitely guide you in the right way.
Very cool.
If can I just say one more thing? If you get a chance to create your own 360 experimentation #visual language practice, and I'm excited to check out whatever you guys make.
All right, sounds good. And with that said, we have gone way over time. We had a couple of technical things happen throughout the stream, but
we
Cyn
made it
came
happen.
back. Cyn came back and pulled it together and even finished it off even more than I thought she was going to. So thanks, Cyn, for being here. I told him we would have you back when you dropped
Thank
off.
you,
We'll have
Terry.
you back anyway, even though you came
Yeah.
back. Very inspiring to see the work with 360. I know I'm a fan of 360 work because I'm just a gadget freak, but also great to see someone use it in a creative way. So that was awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So with that said, you guys want to see more from Cyn, follow her at cynlagos.com, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, everywhere. Same name everywhere that you are. You're also on Behance, I imagine, as well. So
yes,
they can reach out to you on Behance. So with that said, we're going to say goodbye, everybody. Have a good one. Have a good rest of your day. If you want more to watch, head over to behance.net/live/Adobe Live, and you can watch and get with more people in the creative space all day, every day. All right, so with that said, we're going to say goodbye, everybody. Cheers. Have a good one.